What is going on, everybody? This is the Painless Flipping Podcast. Right here, I have a guest with me, Nathan Brooks. How you doing, brother?
I'm so good, brother. And we get to have the Nathan show today. So, I mean, let's be clear.
Whoa. You know what? Honestly, man, I've been finding a lot of Nathans out there. One of my business partners I work with, his name's Nathan. I know a lot of Nathans. I'm sure you do too, don't you?
I do, although I will say I actually know the most name of one single name is David's. And I keep making a joke that every time I meet another David, I'm like, dude, I'm gonna host a David party, and the only people I'm gonna invite are people named David other than me. And
Yes.
yeah.
I'd go. I wouldn't be invited, but that sounds like a good party.
It would be, well, because since we're Nathan's, I feel like there might be some synergy there we could
No,
solve.
I think so. Maybe Nathan and David party.
Nathan and David.
That was just a bunch of guys like
Yeah,
having a good time.
that's
Well,
right.
so everybody that's on here, if this is your first time listening to the Painless Flipping Podcast, our goal is to help you succeed in real estate, to avoid all the pain and all the heartache you go through by just trying to figure everything out yourself. You know, we want to make it as painless as possible because, Nathan, you know, and I know it can be very painful if you just try to put your head down and try to figure it out all on your own, right?
100%. It's
Crazy.
definitely something that you want to have those mentors and coaches and people on the way who really help teach you the things that you can learn them two ways, right?
Right.
You can time or experience, but it can cost you if you don't.
Exactly. And it's cost me, and I'm sure it has cost you because we're about to talk about your first deal. That's what we do in this podcast. We talk about where you're at, the first deal that you did, and where you're at right now. And we know you're crushing it right now, but we also want to know what happened when you first started. So you told me that on your first deal, you bought 2 houses and then lost them. Is that what happened?
Yeah. So I literally I overheard somebody talking about real estate while I was at a lunch date with my probably then girlfriend or fiance, not even wife. So it's some time ago. Overheard them talking about real estate. It was in the time when you'd hear, like, on the radio, you'd hear all the Rich Dad Poor Dad stuff all the time and all those, seminars and stuff. And so I was just so gung ho, read the book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I'm like, ready, fire, aim. I'm in, Nathan. I am in.
Let's go.
And let's go. So, of course, I'm a broke musician at the time. I'm playing and earning my living as a professional musician. And overheard this guy talking about real estate. 3 weeks later, we're in business together, which everything that could go wrong in a partnership, relationship, whatever, business transaction went wrong, from him not showing up to him being the guy who's responsible for construction, who is going through a divorce, who only shows up on Friday to get paid. I'm starting to try to hire, contractors from, like, the day labor pool because I don't even know what to do. And it wasn't like now where you can go on a Facebook group and be like, hey, I need a contractor.
Right.
And so I eventually got them rehabbed for the most part, and had trouble selling them. And then it's starting to be
What
like,
market was it in, by the way?
in Kansas City market.
Okay. Got it.
And I somehow managed to buy more houses past that as well. Back in the day, they would do an 80-20 loan. So you could literally get an 80% loan for your 80% and then a 20% loan for the remainder 20%. So literally that's 80-20 loan, or otherwise known as 100%.
Yeah.
So that was also a bad plan. But through all that and going through literally a lawsuit and ultimately bankruptcy.
Who sued? You said lawsuit. Who came against you with that?
So it was actually the lender on one of those 2 houses, or on those 2 houses. He was a complete shark. And as I've learned and grown and have experience now, recognizing that this is not a good person, not a good lender, not a good, they're more like a mob shark than
They break your knees if you don't pay and stuff.
100%. Yeah. Same guy that's notarizing the mortgage is the one, like, writing it out. So it's
wild.
Yeah, something. But so I had worked out a deed in lieu of foreclosure. And for people that don't know what that means, it basically means I give the loan back, or give the property back. And in exchange, they don't, file for foreclosure. It's still not great by any means, but it's better than that.
Right.
And so I was trying to work through the properties that I had, and ultimately, once they filed for a lawsuit, then we really just had one choice. So
Why would they file for a lawsuit if you did the deed in lieu back to him and gave it back to him?
as a question I have never been able to come up with a good answer for.
So you gave it back to him and they still filed a lawsuit.
No, they had agreed to it verbally,
Mm.
and I was actually out of town making a record in LA at the time, which of course probably sounds really odd, but I remember distinctly being on the phone and working through that, and it was such a relief. And I get back to town, and the bank actually goes to the house with the tenants who are in both of those houses and starts collecting the rent, unbeknownst to me, from them, even though they were current at the time.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just an absolute mess.
That sounds
And
wild, man.
yeah, so
That was
don't.
your first experience in real estate?
That was my first experience in real estate.
Oh my gosh. That would have probably shook and shaken most people to never do it again. What happened?
Well, going through that, I recognized the power of it and also how much I'd really screwed it up. And to be clear, I mean, I still screw stuff up. I'm not
Bro,
perfect.
I just had to deed in lieu of property back like I think a couple months ago in the Utah market because we bought it at the height of the pandemic. Interest rates went up. The house was worth $100,000 less than what we bought it for, rehabbed,
Yeah.
and it's like we were underwater. So we talked to the lender. He's like, "I'll just take it back," and he sold it. We actually deeded and looted back to him and paid him $15,000 to take it back, which sucks. But
Yeah.
and then he sold it and he said he lost money on it. So
Wow.
and just for everyone that's watching, like Utah, where I'm at,
What part of Utah?
Salt Lake City. This was in Provo, if you're familiar with Provo.
I love skiing Park City, and I was looking at buying a house in Heber. I know that market like pretty well, I would say. So
Nice.
yes, I'm pretty familiar.
Well, then you know that the prices during the pandemic they crushed it, man. They went up so high,
Yeah, it was crazy.
and in Provo, which is a college town where Brigham Young University is, it really got hit hard when the interest rates went up because it just didn't maintain its value. So where we bought, yeah. So not to get too much into me, but I'm just saying, hey, it happens, and I'm
Yeah.
not like too big to be like, hey guys, like I hear people like I've never lost money on a deal. I'm like, well, good for you, bro. You've been in
I
business for how long?
I'm like,
Yeah.
you're a liar,
Yeah.
and that, or you haven't done many deals.
Right. Right. Yeah. For sure. So anyway, to go back to you, you were saying you did that. You're not sure why they came at you other than they're sharks, and you knew you saw the potential in real estate, so you stuck in.
Yeah, and going through bankruptcy is just an absolutely awful, awful thing. And I remember sitting there with my wife and just thinking, like, I'm such an idiot. How did I do this? How are we in this position?
Mm-hmm.
But also then realizing, you know, everybody screws stuff up, and whoever's listening, whatever you're thinking about, whatever struggle you're having, other people are having it too. And it's a self-talk that we defeat ourselves with.
Right.
And people who have a negative, belief system or lack of emotional intelligence or whatever that might be. But for me, it was like, hey, I can clearly see now what this is. And
Mm-hmm.
so how could I go through all of these horrible experiences and not learn from them and reallocate that learning and knowledge to doing it better?
Of course.
So,
Do you mind if I ask some questions about bankruptcy? I don't know much
yeah,
about it.
go ahead for sure.
So if you declare bankruptcy, like what are the cons of doing that? Like you had, let's just say you had all this debt, right? That you had to pay. And by declaring bankruptcy, does that mean you're just scot free and you're like, hey, I don't have to pay it anymore? How does that work?
There's a few different types. So there's a Chapter 11, which is a corporate bankruptcy. So that would be like a bigger business, or I'm not sure. I don't remember what the threshold is, but it
Mm-hmm.
was, much bigger than what mine was. And then there's a Chapter 7 and a Chapter 13. Chapter 13 is a personal bankruptcy where you basically restructure the debt. And you have typically a payment plan. And then the Chapter 7 is like when you push all your monopoly chips in and you say, here's all my assets. This is what I have. And basically that's it. So you lose everything.
Okay. Like cars, your house, everything.
Well, personal residence, typically they could be included, and then the cars could be included. In our case, the house was not included, the cars were not included, but it was everything else, other than student loans, but which, by the way, you cannot get rid of in bankruptcy. So
Oh, wow.
think about that one. If you're a college student getting crushed and
Gosh.
that's pretty
There's
wild.
no way getting out of that, buddy.
Right.
Wow.
And then the other thing too is a chapter 13 stays on your record for 7 years, and a chapter 7 stays on your record for 10 years.
Okay.
And so it is basically a scarlet letter that sits on your credit profile for, a decade. And I distinctly remember I'd gotten back to like a 700 credit score within like 12 months, 18 months after bankruptcy. I bought my first house post bankruptcy a couple years later.
Mhm.
And, you know, we'd done tens of millions of dollars at this point. I can't remember what year it was, maybe 2015, 2016, something. And I somehow missed like one payment that was like $30 on a credit card, unintentionally.
Right.
And it dropped my score like 100 points
Oh my gosh.
because you have that bankruptcy on there. And so, if it's such a big deal, and it's such
Right.
an impact for a long time.
So you want to avoid that, obviously, as much as you can, if you can, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. Okay. Because did you ever hear of a company called Sunday.com that did like real estate deals? Have you ever heard of them?
I haven't, no.
Yeah, so there was just a platform that came out like pretty heavy during the pandemic. They started doing deals all over the country, and they would just go to sellers and say, "Hey, we're not going to buy your house, but we can put it in front of a bunch of buyers and get you offers." So they were agents that were doing wholesaling, but transparently being like, "Hey, we're just going to present the offers that we get to you," and they like raised $136 million, and now they've pretty much went
Belly
down.
up.
Yeah, the belly up. So I'm just curious, like if something's like that in a business where you raise a ton of capital and then your business blows up, I'm sure you file bankruptcy because I don't know, I'm assuming, unless the people are like, hey, it was whatever. I don't know.
Well, it depends on how it's structured, and I'm not an attorney, nor am I smart enough to know those things intimately, but there's a lot of different ways those things are structured. So if they
Right.
went and raised like, venture capital kind of money, and they,
Yeah.
I imagine those people just lost their money. And if you did it in like a syndication style, then they would have to sell off those assets, which they probably did anyway, to
Right.
repay as much of that debt as possible.
It's a scary thing. I think because I've talked to a lot of people that raise money and then they put it into like different businesses or syndications, and sometimes they lose, and it's a gamble too, right? Like it's not like they always work out.
No, they definitely don't.
Yeah.
And I've done a few syndications myself, both on the, we've built a fund, and we have a multi-million-dollar fund that we do deals out of now. And I've also invested in friends, syndications.
Yeah.
So, you have to be very thoughtful on who those operators are and what the deals are, and make good decisions.
Yeah. 100%. So no, I think it's amazing. I mean, it's unfortunate, but at the same time, you learned a ton in the beginning. You probably have more experience than most people have been doing this, just from that experience that have been doing it for a long time than people who, well, all I'm saying is you learned a lot from that
Learned a lot.
experience.
Yeah. Learned a lot. Tough experience, and working through that and understanding what not to do, as well as, what things we can do better. And
Right.
like I said, I mean, and even for you, right. And, even this last year or two, last year or two, it's been a weird season, learning through what is the market happening, and interest rates and inflation. And there's a lot of weird stuff going on in the market.
No, there is. And I think if, you try to play it cool and like, hey, I'm crushing it no matter what happens to the market. Hey, everyone has to pivot. Everyone there, business models change. If you're doing the same thing you were doing like 2 years ago, you're probably not doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause I know like 2 years ago, I was really heavy into marketing spend, right? I was just shotgunning the whole approach and just trying to get sellers. Now, not even close that I'm doing that, because why would I just throw money after, opportunities that might not return on my investment. So
100%.
crazy. So tell us where you're at right now. You said you started out, you had the bankruptcy, but now you persevered, you've learned a lot. What are you doing right now, Nathan?
Yeah. So we have a few different things. We have a lending company that we help fund other people. We built a multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio, and it's both short-term and like mid and long-term, or short and mid-term and long-term rentals. And we buy, and we hold some in multiple markets. And by the way, I want to own one out there, so maybe we can figure
Dude,
it out.
Heber, that's what you want, huh?
Yeah, dude. Anywhere around there would be awesome. And I love Utah.
Yeah,
Love
next
it.
time you're out here, you got to hit me up. I live in Sandy, so if you just go up Big
Oh
Cottonwood
yeah,
Canyon, it's you're
I
at the snow. What is it? The Snowbird and
yeah,
Solitude and all that.
I know exactly where you are. Love it. And
Awesome.
we will make that happen. I have my Epic Pass actually showed up today. So
Yes, you said.
here's my Epic Pass.
Dang. So
I
you
will
are
be
a pretty avid skier, then, dude.
Yeah,
Awesome.
skier, hunter. I literally just got back from Idaho yesterday from a backcountry hunt.
What part of Idaho?
It was in the Frank Church Wilderness, which, by the way, Nathan, is the largest contiguous national conservation space in the United States.
Wow.
2.3 million acres. So it's pretty wild.
Yo, Idaho's underrated, man. I went to school in Rexburg, Idaho. If you're familiar with the Pocatello, Idaho Falls area, it's just eastern Idaho. But yeah,
Okay.
Idaho's great.
Amazing. So, but
Beautiful.
so now I'm really working on helping other people fund their deals. We do flips still, but I'm not. We were doing 100, 150 flips a year.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that anymore.
Scaled back, like we talked about, like pivoting. You're not doing as many flips as before. Okay.
No, we're also doing more short-term, mid-term rentals. We find that we can make them, return 10, 20, 30 times what a regular rental, does.
Hmm.
And we typically buy a much more higher end product too. So
Okay.
and then we do some developments too. So with our fund that we raised, we buy and build and do some development in Texas. And so we've developed some lots, and we build duplexes, single families, and some small multifamily. And so we've done that. We're doing that right now as well.
Wow. It sounds like you got a lot going on. Is it just you, or do you have a couple people involved in the company? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, so August of 21, I had a bunch of people on my own personal staff, and we had a
Mhm.
huge overhead. And now I've really been more focused on partnership relationships and leveraging people and systems that are already in place and
Okay.
utilizing the things I'm really good at. And
Mm.
so I have a handful of partnerships and a very small, uh, you know, a very small team. So I also have a 13,000 member Facebook group. And so we help people invest in real estate, and we have
Awesome.
contractors and real estate investors and realtors and so forth in there. And so I've basically one director of operations on the real estate side, one director of operations on that community side,
Hmm.
and then partnerships beyond that.
So when you said you've gone more into partnerships, does that mean that you've reduced your overhead a lot, and you don't have all those employees like you did before?
Significantly, like hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. Yeah.
And when did this come about? Was this because of the pandemic, or was that why?
100%. Yeah. And
Okay.
just getting tired of, having to flip, 8 or 10 houses or whatever it was a month just to pay your overhead. And we'd grown so much, and we
Mhm.
bought this big beautiful office. And I think there's some people that love having that big business, and what
Yeah.
I realized was that was not what I wanted.
Mhm.
And I'm not a person who wants to sacrifice to make another, $500,000, $1 million, or whatever that number is for people. For me, it wasn't worth it for my sanity and my time, and getting to hang out with my wife and my kids and do the things I love to do. So
Yeah, lifestyle, right? Like, I think when people get into this, they think that's what you need to have, is that big, big team, big overhead, the big company. When you realize that's adds a lot of stress, and it's not worth it in a lot of
not worth
times.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
not worth it to me. So yeah, it was definitely like, how can we do this better? How can we make it better? And so I've really revamped that. And I also, the thing I think about a lot too
Mhm.
is, how do I have different income streams that all cover what that monthly nut is? So if
Yeah.
you have a month that's tough in one area, you still are covering it in another, and many others, right? And so I've
Right.
been really focused on that, and also focused on having a little bit more of a balance in my net worth, where I have less of my holdings in actual real estate and more of mine, balanced through other stuff too.
So like diversification, right? You're investing in not just real estate. Is that what you're saying?
Yep, absolutely. And
Are
how can
you,
I?
are you a crypto guy?
I have some crypto, and over the last couple of years, I've had a couple $100,000 in and out of crypto stuff. But
Mhm.
honestly, I that hasn't gone that well, but the Bitcoin part has, and so I'm really
Mhm.
more just have a small amount of regular into Bitcoin, and honestly, just thinking about a low cost fund and how much
Right.
cash am I keeping, and so just getting that down, because I think a lot of those of us investors, we spend so much time buying real estate, and all of a sudden you look at your net worth and you're like, okay, well, hey, maybe I'm a millionaire, or I own 10
Mhm.
houses or whatever, but almost the majority of or all of your net worth is illiquid
Mhm.
in this
Mhm.
asset. So
Well, it's interesting because I think you brought up the book Think and Grow Rich or earlier, how that was kind of like maybe that got you. Did that? Were you saying that's why you got kind of started? You heard some of that stuff on the radio or stuff similar to that?
well, it was Rich Dad Poor Dad, and then
I'm sorry, that's what I meant. Rich Dad Poor Dad, not Think and
yeah,
Grow Rich. My bad.
yeah. And I'm an avid reader, by the way, and I love books, and I also just read The Psychology of Money, awesome book. Richest Man in Babylon,
Great
awesome
one.
book.
Yep.
And there's just on and on and on.
I've been trying to get. I got the Harvard Classic Library over there. I don't know if you read outside of business, but I like to read outside of business a lot. But yeah, I'm a big reader too.
I love it. It's amazing when I think of things that are the biggest impact, lowest cost, and lowest um, you know, impact to get, or difficulty to get into it. It's
Mhm.
like reading is the number one.
Oh my gosh, bro. I love reading for the fact that like you can read something from like 1,000 years ago, 200 years ago, and you can dive into the mind of that person that
Yeah,
was living and know more about maybe that person that is not alive anymore than you would if they were right here with you. Like you can read everything that they thought, their best, their best work. I think it's just so cool how we have all this information out there and it's at our fingertips. Like we can access it.
I love that, and I could not agree more. And for people who say they don't have time, it's one of those things where, every morning I get up, I have a very strict morning routine, and I go walk. It's like this morning I walked a couple miles. It was raining, doesn't matter.
I
I'm
love
outside.
walking.
Go walk. I put my earbuds in and listen to a book, right? And
Mhm.
uh, you can always find time, and we make time for things that are
Of
important
course.
to us. So
So I I love walking too. I just had my first baby, a baby girl. She's like almost 3 months now, and I just crank up that stroller, bro, and we go walking for hours.
I love it, dude. Congratulations. Being
Yeah.
a dad is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah. No, it really isn't. It's kind of opened my eyes to like the amount of time that somebody can work. And I talk to a lot of people that like focus so much on work and they're like not at home, right? They're not spending time with their family. And
Yeah.
they're like, their thought is like, hey, I want to be prepared. I want to be set for when I'm older. But my thought is like, bro, you're missing all the good years that your kids, like the 20 years they'll actually be home. Why don't you focus more on that?
Yeah.
Than having that freedom when they're won't even want to hang out with you. They're gonna have
Well,
their own families.
I read some sort of statistic, and I'll probably get it wrong, but it's generally in the right direction, which is, you spent like 80 or 90% of your time with your kids when they turn 18, by the time they turn 18.
Hmm.
And when you think about that, it's like, oh my gosh, my son's 12, my almost 13, my daughter's almost 10.
Yeah.
And so, when you think about, there's a conversation all the time about when people are in hospice or whatever, and they're like, hey, what are the things you want to
Right.
look back on, or you would have done differently? It's like, I would spend more time. Like, it's not about money. So the
Mm,
money is a tool. We're on
of
this
course.
podcast, we're talking about money, we're talking about investing and making good decisions. It's just like, at what cost?
Right. No, it's so interesting. I've dived into that a lot, right? Like, because my wife, I think her grandma passed away maybe a year ago, and she left all the money behind to the kids, and the kids, they spent it, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like they bought things that they wanted, like a house, a car, all this stuff, and it's like, wow, she left all this, she saved it, for someone to just go buy whatever they wanted with it. So it just makes me think of like, yes, you make it to what end? You make all that money, you can't spend it, and your kids are just gonna blow it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, what are you gonna do about it? And also, like, from a legacy standpoint, there are other things besides money also. Like,
Right.
what is the education? What are the books you read? What is your work ethic? And what is your emotional intelligence? And are you a human being that loves your life and finds ways to, create happiness instead of and putting that into the world instead of, taking it?
So about your routine, I'm interested because I want to learn a little bit more because I have a strict routine too that helps me prepare for my day, my week. What you said walking. What else do you do in the morning that helps you prepare for the day in your routine?
Yeah, so I have a written gratitude every day. So I write 3 things I'm grateful for,
Money.
and also if there's something that I'm really focused on, like, those 3 things, and then, hey, it's going to be a long day, so I'm going to be present in each moment, and including when I am done working and hanging out with my family, and then drinking water. So I track the amount of water I drink. I track the amount of protein I eat. Uh, Whether I drink alcohol or not,
Mhm.
uh, and trying to think of what else. Reading, walking,
Do
and
you have a set amount of time you try to read a day, or is it just what you can get in?
I say 10 pages or 10 minutes, but I probably average 45 minutes to an hour at least of reading a day.
Yeah. Do you do that in the mornings, or is it when you get back from work, or
Yep, typically in the mornings. I'm typically out of my. I don't usually use an alarm clock, but I have this bed mattress thing that's called an uh, Euler, Ooler, something like that.
okay?
And so because I always get hot, well, it also has it has tubes that run through this thing, and
Wow.
so you can make it as cool or warm as you want, and it has a system that pumps water through it. And then the cool thing too is instead of waking up to some like obnoxious alarm,
Mhm.
you can actually have it warm up as around the time that you want to wake up. So
Dang.
your body naturally wakes up in a rhythm,
Ooh,
and so it's a much better way to wake up.
that sounds beautiful. That
Yeah.
sounds nice. So about your 3 things that you write that you're grateful for in the morning, is it just 3 things, or do you kinda sometimes jot down, like, what happened the previous day? Do you kinda elaborate, or is it just 3 things quick and you just get it out, get it done?
Oh, and push-ups. The other one was push-ups too. So I do push-ups every day. And a lot of times I'll do more workout than that, but
Mhm.
sauna and stair climber and all kinds of things. I love to hunt, love to ski, love to be outdoors.
Right.
Um, but the written gratitude typically is just written. I used to try to like track a journal and have like specific journals, and I have years of journals, and I just found it to not work as well for me. And so I literally have it's in my desk over there. Otherwise, I'd show you, but
Mhm.
it's just a notepad, and I use a college ruled notepad, and to start every day. I write the date, and I write 3 things I'm grateful for, and then I write the 3 things I'm focused on for that day, so that I can have a very clear plan and also be in a positive mindset.
I like that because I do the 3 things, and I write like what I'm going to focus on that day,
Mhm.
and I actually do a longer process, and I always question if it's like, is it just better just to be quicker and not be take so long? Because I actually time how long it takes me to write. My journal takes about 12 minutes, like on average. So it
Yeah.
just makes you wonder. I got it right here. I keep track. So this is one when I started my real estate journey, I was just doing the bullet points of like things I'm grateful for. So
Mhm.
this is 2018. I started 5 years ago, but it's cool. It's cool to look back and be like, oh, I was grateful for, Costco pizza then or whatever.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, sometimes just the Costco pizza makes the day better, right? So,
Exactly.
uh, and I don't think I'd be concerned about the 12 minutes. I'd be more concerned about the effectiveness and like the value you get out of it. And
Right.
so, for me, it wasn't, that I just I didn't find myself enjoying that time. I really enjoy writing my gratitude, and I also have a friend of mine who we exchange almost every morning. And so
Hmm.
we text each other. So it's not only is it accountability, but it's also like, oh, that's a good one,
Yeah. Yeah.
and uh, one of the things that he writes in his a lot of times is let me see, what is it? There's such a good line. I think it's like must be present to win.
Yeah,
And
true, bro.
he how can I surrender to he's a pretty religious dude.
Mhm.
Surrender to God today, or must be present to win. So that really helped like challenge me
That is good.
also, where it's like, okay, uh, I have the gratitude, but then I also have the like the mental um, willingness to what am I actually like working on today.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Now, last thing I want to ask you about being present. I have noticed for myself that my phone is the thing that destroys when I'm present. Like if I have my phone, I'm getting calls or I want to be on social, doesn't enable me to be present with the people I'm with. Has that been the case for you, or what have you done to be more present?
100%. And it's funny. I on Facebook probably a couple weeks ago, I posted this where I looked at my phone and I looked at, and if people don't know, you can actually go into your phone and you go, if it's an iPhone, settings, and then screen time,
Mm. Hmm.
and you can see your activity. So settings, screen time, and so I went through and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm spending like 4 hours a day on my phone, and of course
Yeah.
I post that, and I have people on there who are like, dude, I'm like 6 or 8 or 10 hours, and I'm just
Can you
like,
believe that?
no, no, I
Yeah.
really can't. And so my also the intention then became, okay, well, am I picking up my phone because I'm Pavlov's dog to my phone and
Hmm.
myself, or am I picking it up because I really actually need to do something? And so just doing that alone has helped. But man, it's a struggle, and it's also a
Of
struggle
course.
having kids, and what are we teaching them, and how are they, you know I mean, how many times we go to a dinner, I love going to awesome dinners. I'm a big wine guy, big food guy.
Hmm.
And you roll into dinner, and you walk past a bunch of tables, and everybody's sitting there at the table on their phone.
Oh,
Like,
dude, it's tough. Like now that I've been more aware of my phone usage, I look and I see it everywhere, and it's not, I don't want to say embarrassing, but it's like sad. I'm just like, oh man, look at all these people could be engaging, building relationships, but they're just on their phones talking to someone who, I don't even know what they're doing.
yeah, or you don't even know the person, or you've only connected via Facebook or Instagram or whatever. And honestly, a lot of times too, I'll either put it in my pocket, so I have to, it's an extra effort, or I'll even leave it in my truck. And it's
There you
just like,
go.
hey, to what end are you willing to not be distracted?
Agreed. Yeah, I went on when I first got married, my wife was really big on that, and I would bring my phone with me, obviously on vacations, and I would always be on it, and she'd be like, "You're not even enjoying our vacation, right?"
Yeah,
And eventually, now, like, I don't even if we go out somewhere, I just leave my phone in the car or at home, and she brings the phone in case like, there's an emergency, and she doesn't have any problems because
yeah,
she's like, "Who? I don't need to talk to anybody." So it's been, and my vacations have been so much better. It's so much more fun, be more present. You're not worried. You're like, when you get to that phone the next day, you're like, hey, everyone survived. It's all
yeah,
good.
yeah. Well, it literally yesterday, I got back from backcountry hunt in Idaho, and there is no cell service. So
Yeah.
guess what? You get in a bush plane, which means you literally take off in a little tiny four-seater plane, and they fly you through the mountains and land at this dirt strip in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And you get on a horse and you ride horseback in the middle of the mountains, and chase elk for 7 days. And
That sounds amazing.
yeah, and very hard work too, by the way.
Yeah.
But it's, you can't be on the phone. There's
Mhm.
just nothing to do. So because there's no cell service.
That sounds good. And do you have a good time? Was it fun?
It was not my favorite hunting trip. I will leave it to that for the
Yeah,
moment, but
yeah.
it's I love being out in the wilderness, and I love the challenge, the personal challenge of gosh, elevation is no joke, man. Where you live, it's awesome. So
Yeah.
I'm grateful for being out there for sure.
Awesome. Definitely an experience to have for sure. Well, Nathan, tell us a little bit about how people can reach out to you and what you can do for them. Because obviously, if they've been watching this live or will watch in the future, they want to know how they can reach out to you.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's a couple things. And thank you again for having me on. I really enjoyed the conversation a lot.
Of course.
So there's a couple things. First of all, I wrote a book, and a lot of things we talked about actually, it's funny. So it's called The No Quitters Guide. Um, it was published in January. You can buy it anywhere books are sold. So
Sweet.
Books a Million, Barnes and Noble, Amazon, whatever. And then we have an awesome lending company, and it's interesting in the real estate space right now. The access to capital is actually a big struggle for a lot of people, and so we've put together some really cool programs. And so what we'd love to help. It's called bridgefinancialservices.com, and we can connect with you there too. And then of course social. So Nathan Brooks REI, and I'm on the same on all platforms. So make it easy.
So the type of lending that you provide, is it for fix and flips mainly? What kind of lending is it? Is it for long term?
We have a product for all of those things. So we can actually do long-term buy and hold money, including even a 30-year AM product, which is pretty amazing.
That is
Uh,
amazing.
we have a fix and flip product, a couple of them, and then we also have some bridge loan type deals, as well as we can do new construction, we can do apartments, so in the commercial space. So we can cover all those gamuts.
Wow. And I'm sure the underwriting process, I mean, who does that for, I guess, fix and flips? Who underwrites and makes sure that the deal is worth lending on?
We have a team in place. So again, I partnered with one of
Mhm.
my favorite local lenders who I'd worked with for a long time, and so
Perfect.
we brought a great team together and great products, and so it's been a great way to do it.
So is that how you do it? Is instead of you having to raise millions of dollars, you've partnered with someone that already has the funds, and then you basically connect. Is that what you do?
Yep,
I
absolutely.
love it. I think, yeah, that's awesome. And I honestly, from like Tom Curl and a lot of the guys that I've seen in the family, it seems like partnerships is the way to really scale. It's not, let me figure out how I can have to do everything and build everything. It's, let me find the right people and then do the connections. It sounds like that's what you're doing.
100%. And
Okay.
it's fun to work with people that you enjoy, and it's also fulfilling to be able to. Well, there's a great book, right? Who Not How. So
Right.
you don't need to be the person that can do all those things. You can partner or hire in or whatever that will produce the same outcome or better, and you get to do the things that you're great at and staying in your lane, and using other people to or partnering with other people to do what they're so great with.
Did you read the new book that Dr. Benjamin Hardy came out with called 2x 10x is easier than 2x?
No,
Yeah, let me show you this one really quick.
I'm gonna write it down though because I love that. I love him.
Yeah, he's great. So he just came. Well, I don't want to say just. It was a couple months ago. Dr. Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan, the guys that did Who Not Who How, and I think it was The Gap and the
Gap in the
Gain.
gain. Yep.
Yeah, so this one's amazing. I read it. 10x is easier than 2x. It talks about how focusing on the higher leverage activities is smarter than the smaller stuff, right? Just it's like coaching, right? So if you focus on like small ticket items, you're gonna have to work harder than if you focus on bigger ticket. You have to work with less people. They're higher quality, easier to work with. So anyway,
Yeah.
very very cool book. I recommend anybody, not just you, Nathan, but anybody that wants to read a good book. 10x is easier than 2x is a great one.
I'm gonna get it. I'll
Yeah,
have
it's a
it.
great one. Yeah, let me know what you think, because it definitely changed the way I thought, and it's really interesting because most books that I read have a variation of like do higher leverage activities, focus on one thing. I mean, there's the one thing, there's Atomic Habits, like
Oh,
everything is like just in a different way. It's spinning like, dude, just focus and get good at something. That's really like what
that's
I
it.
learned a
By the
lot.
way, acquired. Well, there's the video.
Is
Boom.
that is
Acquired.
that Audible? Is that you gonna listen
Yep.
to it? Yeah,
Yep.
I got on Audible too. So I'd like to read the physical copy and Audible, and then I'm like, man, I'm getting so much from this. So
Yes.
awesome.
I typically will do Audible first, and then if there's something specific in the book, like for instance, I have a number of books sitting at my desk right here. But so here's
Yep.
Traction, and of course, The Man. Um,
The myth, the legend, right?
yeah. So once I have them, then I'll go back through and I'll take crazy notes and put a million markers in them so I can go back and find it.
For sure. I'll give you one more that I just listened to Audible. It was sick.
All
Do
right.
you know who Jesse Burrell is from Batch Leads? He owns Batch Leads.
I know the name. I don't know him personally.
So he told me he recommended Fear Nova. Fearvana. Fearvana. It just talks about like how fear, like a lot of people perceive it to be a bad emotion, but it's actually a good emotion that drives you to actually take action. So if you like Audible, it's Fearvana. It's just, I think it's just fear and then Vana. It's a really good one as well. If if you're looking for more.
Love it. I'm always looking for more.
Yeah,
Can't
great.
wait.
That one was sick. I was like, man, that's good. It just made me like want to pursue things I'm a little bit afraid to do. Like I never considered doing skydiving because I'm like, screw that. But the guy's like, hey, you do more things that you're scared of, you become a bigger beast. So I'm like,
So I started training martial arts
oh,
like,
dude, you do MMA. I do MMA too.
and so I took a cage fight at age 39 in front of a few thousand people, and yeah, so that's definitely.
Did you get rocked?
I ended up losing the decision, but broke his nose and had a,
You got him.
dude, 3 rounds in a cage
Oof.
in front of a bunch of people is it's a pretty wild experience.
Oh man. Are you a fan of UFC and MMA?
I am a massive fan, and I've gotten to train with lots of guys in the UFC as well. So,
Really?
yep,
So, Bo Nickel, Anthony Cassar, do you know those guys from Penn State?
yep.
So I'm cool with Anthony Cassar. I don't know if you know who he is, but he won the NCAA championships his senior year at heavyweight, and
Oh my gosh.
He just fought on Sunday, and he won his second professional MMA fight, and he's 2-0. And I
Dang.
sponsored him. I put my little logo on his shorts, his fight shorts. But anyway, it's cool because I'm really big fan, and I do jujitsu at my gym. So
I love it, dude. Jiu-jitsu is awesome, and martial arts is such a blessing. And I've skydived, I've power paraglided. Backcountry hunting, like riding horses through the mountains, is actually can be pretty sketchy too. But
yeah, right on the edge of that cliff or something crazy.
yeah, that couple thousand feet down, drop down, and you're riding an animal that's as wider than the cliff ledge is. But
It sounds sketchy.
it can be for sure. But
You sound like the guy I need to be hanging out with, Nathan. You sound like the fear, you face your fears and you read, and that's what I'm about.
that's 100% it. And it's one of those things when you see something, you can't unsee it. And so you get to deal with it or you don't deal with it. And I think, I've had purposely embraced the desire to be a Renaissance man. Like I hunt, I fish, I know how to take care of my family. I know how to operate a gun. I know how to, grow vegetables, train martial arts, play music, read. It's like, how can I embrace those things that I think really actually matter?
Yeah, and if the world starts getting a little wild, I think you're gonna be all right.
Be all right.
And you ain't afraid. It's like, hey, if everything goes wild, I'll grow some cucumbers,
Hey,
or some tomatoes.
yeah, I'll be good to go for sure.
Well, awesome, man. It's been a pleasure chatting with you, Investor Thrive Nation. This has been the Painless Living Podcast. Reach out to Nathan. He's got a sweet book. He's got a Facebook group. You can reach out to him on social and, take a lot from what he said. He's got a wealth of knowledge, reading, going after what you want, not being afraid. And especially we talked in the beginning of this, your first experience wasn't the one that everybody thinks you have, but you're still
Yeah,
going strong, man. So you're an example to all of us. Thank you for coming on.
absolutely. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
All right, everybody. See you later, and we'll see you on the next one.